Hello, this is the July 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Town of Northborough, Massachusetts Water and Sewer Commission. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. Our first item on the agenda is consideration and approval of the minutes of the June 9th, 2020 meeting. At this point, I'll open it up to commission members with any comments, questions you may have on the meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Furman.
I'm not sure I have the most recent copy. I did have a number of just grammatical, typographical errors on page 2 and 3. Paragraph 1 on page 2, under about halfway down, it says leak detection and tank inspections items can be deferred, that could be deferred, including waiting. Would that be just include? Suppose you could have it including. But...
Oh, it so could include waiting?
Yeah. I can read it the other way too. Just.
Okay, anything else?
In that same paragraph, the next to the last line, it says layoff on part-time administrator instead of one.
Okay.
And in the last line on that paragraph too, it says will adjust where need be moving forward, needed to move forward, or it says need be moving forward. I think it should be needed moving forward. Take the be out.
Or perhaps as necessary.
Right, yeah. And actually, on page 3, under number 4, the first paragraph, the next to the last line, it says the coming year we have made this be another infiltration year. Made this, just strike B.
I'm sorry, I'm missing where you are, Bryant.
The next to last line in that first paragraph under item number 4.
COVID-19 department update.
No, the line before that, next to the last.
Oh, no, I understand.
Yeah.
That's item 4.
Yeah, right. Is it the coming year and have been made this be another infiltration year? Strike B.
Oh, okay. I see where you are.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
I'm good.
No, nothing. Okay, I have a couple of things, so I'll try to do them quickly. Page 1, paragraph 2, or item 2, the second paragraph, kind of almost a little bit past halfway, says the second position is the full-time assistant. There's a period after assistant. So I think the period should be stricken, if I'm correct. Again, for outside readers, I'm suggesting perhaps you define what MWRA is. Maybe everybody knows what it is at this point. And then just a question where you say on the very last sentence, the actual assessment went down by approximately. If it's an actual, is it an approximate? Just a question.
I can remove approximately.
Unless, you know, unless you rounded, didn't include the pennies or something. Second page, again, suggesting on the first paragraph, for outsiders, spell out what GIS is. Kind of, I guess, perhaps we need to do where DPW is somewhere ahead. I'm not sure. Item 3, consideration of the minutes. Let's see, I think where it says Mr. Meter suggested additions be made, there should be a period. Then you have the capital M for motion. And then where you have April 26, that should be 28. Next page, item paragraph 4, the COVID-19. About 2/3 of the way down where you talk about supervisory control and you spell it out. Excellent. What's rotation?
Scott, can you answer that?
Yeah, I'm finding where he's reading it.
Okay.
This will aid us in the future supervisor control and data acquisition. I don't know what the word rotation intends to mean there. It would be a capital project.
Yeah, I couldn't even come up with a guess.
Yeah, I would just strike.
So I would just strike rotation.
Strike the
That
word.
doesn't do any damage, I don't think.
Right, just strike the word.
And then last, on the very last item or last page where you have next meeting, or you said the next regular meeting, I think you're just missing a period at the end of arises. And those would be my suggestions. So anything further? Commission side? All right, hearing none, then this will be a motion by roll call to approve the minutes of the June 9th, 2020 regular meeting as amended. Commissioner Furman,
Aye.
Commissioner Pepe,
Aye.
Commissioner Meter, aye. Our next item on the agenda is review of the draft water and sewer rate study with Mr. Dave Fox of Raftelis Financial Consultants. And for background, I'll hand it over to DPW Director Scott Charpentier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going through our annual rate study process now, and as we've done in past years, we like to have an informal presentation of the findings after the most recent fiscal year has closed and we have the actual expenditures. So those numbers have been provided to Raftelis, along with the fund balances, actual usage for the prior fiscal year, all baked into the current draft rate study model, as well as a incorporation of the updated capital improvement plan, which includes the 2 articles that were recently approved at town meeting, the Assabet storage tank rehabilitation project and the water sewer garage project. Also included in the rate study is the sort of mid-year sewer flat rate analysis that was performed in response to some questions that some of the residents had, specifically our customers in the flat rate areas who are served by municipal sewer and not municipal water. All that has been pushed through the rate model, and I'll give it over to Dave Fox, so Raftelis, to kind of brief us on what the findings are.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Um, that was a great overview. Thanks for stealing my thunder there. Yeah, as Scott mentioned, I've been working with you all, the town and the commission for the last, I think, 4 or 5 rate studies. I can't remember now. Somewhere in that ballpark. We have a very detailed rate and financial planning model for both the water and sewer utilities, which we update typically a few times a year, just to kind of see where we are, updating with any changes to the capital improvements plan. And with the biggest update being right about now, where we're forecasting what rates need to be for the upcoming fiscal year. These rate models take into consideration actual historical operating expenses, the budgeted operating expenses for the upcoming fiscal year, things to include just general administration, operating expenses, obviously the MWRA assessments. Another big component of the rate models are looking at the principal and interest payments due on debt service that the town has issued for both the water and sewer utilities to pay for capital improvement projects, which should be prolonged over a longer period of time rather than paid out of cash, and looking at the capital improvements plan for what needs to get spent in terms of capital expenditures in the upcoming fiscal year, and then also looking at another 5-year projection as to what we think is coming in terms of capital improvements and how we're going to fund and finance those capital improvements. Typically, we are looking at a mixture of debt financing and cash financing. So obviously cash is being generated in that fiscal year from rates to pay for those projects. And the debt service, we're issuing debt to pay for those projects, which will be prolonged and paid over a number of years, which is very common for larger assets with longer useful life. That's kind of the revenue requirement side of things, the expenses, if you will. We then compare that against a forecast of revenues. We typically start with a forecast of revenues under your existing rate structure. We look out over a 5-year period, again, focusing on that first fiscal year, and looking at what would be the financial situation should rates not increase at all. What would be the financial situation should we have to pay for all those revenue requirements and expenses over that 5-year period if rates didn't change at all? What that typically shows is that you would start running in both the water and sewer funds. Deficits would be run. Fund balances would quickly deplete to zero and then go negative, which is actually not a possibility, but you would show that. And as such, we need to recommend rate increases. To be able to do this analysis, we do a very detailed analysis of your billing data. We look at actual bills that are sent out for every single one of your customers. Look at their meter sizes, their classifications, when they're using water, how they're using water, looking at trends. Obviously, a little earlier in the year, things were not looking quite as rosy with COVID-19 going on, and seeing it's actually been a trend that we've been seeing is just declines in consumption even pre-COVID. And then COVID didn't really help anything. You're not alone in that boat. But over the recent months, over the last couple months that we've been seeing here, consumption has actually been getting back to normal and even past normal, booming to some degree. A lot of that having to do with outdoor water usage and just pumping a lot of water. So we think that consumption is bouncing back to not only a normal level, but something higher than what we've seen historically, recognizing that consumption has been going down. We have not, though, factored in an increase in consumption for our forecast, being conservative, because we have seen one, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and 2, we've seen prolonged decreases and declines in consumption over the past few years. I think it would be irresponsible of us to assume that this increase in consumption we've seen over the last couple months is actually going to be sustained for a long period of time, and we're going to see an annualized amount of that. If that does happen, that's great. We may have a different conversation next year, and then perhaps we can reduce some of the increases we're talking about in the out years. But I think that would be irresponsible to assume that that additional revenue is going to actually amount to something, or amount to a full year's worth of that increase for the upcoming fiscal year 2021. As always, we take into consideration as well, what we're talking about always is just increases to your water and sewer rates, your volumetric and your fixed charges. On the sewer side, the flat rate. As Scott mentioned, we did about a mid-year analysis of how the sewer only flat rate should be calculated, and decided that it should be reduced to reflect a lower amount of assumed consumption, assumed demand in that flat rate, from what is $340 currently to $220, so a significant reduction. And I think it was decided by the commission, and just based on some recommendations, that we'd reevaluate every 3 to 5 years or so the methodology used to calculate that sewer only flat rate. But we're always talking about these user charges, but please keep in mind that we also take into consideration miscellaneous revenue sources and offset the revenue needs of both the water and sewer utilities by those historical revenue, or those miscellaneous revenue sources. For this fiscal year, in 2020, we actually saw a little bit of an anomaly in terms of higher miscellaneous revenues. We took that out of the equation and looked at a historical rolling average, taking out the highs and lows to try to get us back to a reasonable forecast of miscellaneous revenues to offset the revenue needs of the utility. Taking all that into consideration, what we are recommending for fiscal year 2021, which is right in line with what we were recommending the last year when we were having this conversation with you, what we thought was going to be the case for fiscal year 2021, is a 4% increase on the water volumetric rates. No increase at all on the water base charges. If you remember correctly, we had a significant increase on the water base charge last year. Although we are, and by we I mean Raftellus, are proponents of having higher fixed charges, or revenues coming from fixed charges for revenue stability purposes, we recognize the impact that this has on typically low volume customers, and as such, it's reasonable to assume that we'll just increase the volumetric charge this year, but we are assuming another increase in the fixed charge by about $1 next year in fiscal year 2022, based on the best projections we have today. And we're also assuming a 5% increase on the sewer volumetric rates. Again, no fixed charge there, just the volumetric rates, a 5% increase, which is right in line with the projections as of last year, other than the sewer only flat rate decreasing by about $120 per quarter, from $340 to $220 to better reflect excuse me, to better reflect the actual cost of servicing a typical customer. All this amounts to a typical residential bill increasing by about $14 per quarter, from $320 to $334. With that being said, I rambled quite a bit there, so I'd like to just pause for a few minutes and make sure there's no intermediate questions, and if so, I'd be happy to. Or Scott, if there's anything that I missed that you want to add in, please do so.
Just on the water base charge side, one of our goals is to maintain a healthy ratio of stable revenue, i.e. the water base charge, as compared to the volumetric, which varies based on use. So what we're projecting in the out years is an every other year adjustment of the water base charge in order to maintain that ratio. Eventually, we would like to adjust that ratio up so the base charge is a little higher percentage of our revenue stream. But at this point, like Dave said, it was a large change last year. So we'll maintain that ratio for a while and reevaluate it in the future.
All right, very good. I will, at this point, open it up to commission members for any questions or comments you have on the draft study.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Furman.
No, I thought it was very good, very clear. I only had one question, just a clarification for me. What is what separates senior debt from subordinate debt? Is there a threshold, or is it just, in Scott's estimation, which senior and which subordinate? On table Exhibit 2, debt service, we have existing debt, senior debt service, and subordinate debt service. I was just wondering what the difference was between the two. Or what's the criteria for one or the other?
You do not have any subordinate debt service.
Right.
I apologize. We probably should just take that out of those tables. Some utilities or some municipalities will issue different types of debt and have different requirements for those debt services that they issue to maintain certain coverage on the debt service. And by that, I mean revenues in addition to net revenues. If you back out operating expenses from the revenues, the amount left over to pay for debt service. For senior level debt, those are typically revenue bonds. Bigger debt issuances would need to have a higher coverage for just a senior level debt, and then the subordinate level debt will typically have a lower coverage, and then the total amount, if you add up both the senior and subordinate, would have to have a lower coverage on all that debt service combined. But that's not an issue that you need to be concerned about. Given
Okay, I just didn't know if it was maybe one threshold, but there's a whole set of criteria. Okay,
Yes.
fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to go ahead and just strike that out of that table just to remove confusion. So thank you for pointing that out.
I think it's in the next table too, I think.
You are correct.
2 and 3, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Pepe, anything?
I think, as you said, the covert issue really didn't affect us. Is that true? And the reason I'm asking is we're not sure when we're going to get out of this, so that it probably will spill into next year.
From a volumetric perspective, we were benefactors of the drought situation, as most water utilities are. As soon as you enter into drought, which we did a few years ago, all of a sudden consumption goes up substantially. The consumption loss associated with restaurants being closed for 6+ weeks was overcome by the additional water use during the drought conditions we're in now.
Is our cost affected by the covert? I mean, labor cost. I mean, practices you need to do now in a department, precautions. Are those issues?
Our productivity is certainly down because of the broken staff. I mean, we have two groups of two. If we were a department of 20, it'd be a little bit different, but 2 guys can't do half the work of 4 guys. It just doesn't work that way. So our production is down, but the critical components, valve exercising, hydrant flushing, sampling, that's all being done first and foremost. It's the I don't want to call it filler work, but the other work that gets impacted, like service swaps, where we want to switch out old iron corporations with new ones. We haven't been doing that. We just don't have the bandwidth to do that right now.
Okay. All set.
Anything else, David? All right. I do have just a couple of quick editorial things. I did think, I thought it was very well written, David. So
Thank you.
nice job.
Thank you.
Let's see, I guess page 1, paragraph 111, the third paragraph, again, a little nitpicky thing, where you say Massachusetts water resource, it's resources.
Yeah.
So, since we're so at their whim, we might recognize them correctly. Again, things very good, very well written. Page 6, where you discussed the change in the flat rate service fee. Where you described in a previous memo, would it be beneficial, worthwhile to include that memo as an appendix, just for the sake of completeness, or how would you want to handle that, Scott?
I think that's appropriate. It's been posted already. It's it's on our website with a link, and it's logical to have it attached to this document as an appendix.
Yeah, just for the sake of completeness, I think if there's no harm in doing it as an appendix.
I don't see any harm there at all, so we'll go ahead and do that.
Page 9, Exhibit 9. Just a little confused by the title. It says existing, proposed, and forecast. Were you intending to have the fiscal year 2020
Yes,
as a column?
I think, yes. Thank you. I will amend, what I'm going to amend this to is having fiscal year 2020 as a column so you can see what the actual charges are. Amending fiscal year, and which would be existing, amending fiscal year 2021 to not say forecast, but rather say proposed, and then 22 and beyond would be forecast.
Okay. My only comment, when I originally marked up my copy, I put under fiscal 2021 proposed question mark.
Yeah.
And I just pointed out as to be consistent because Exhibit 4 uses forecast.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I wasn't sure how you wanted to handle that one.
That's a great point. I'll amend this exhibit as well as all others to ensure the labeling on 2021 is referred to as proposed rather than forecast.
Okay, that sounds good. And then the last thing I had was on page 10.
Okay.
Your middle paragraph, the third line from the bottom, you have 3 point, I think you're just missing a 0, 3.0% to 5.0%.
You got it. Thank you.
Yep. And that was everything I had on the draft. Again, very well written. Scott, your intention is maybe you already have it on the town's website or were you waiting for our discussion before you posted them? Just so the folks know.
Yeah, we're going to incorporate the comments provided today into an updated report. We'll post that on the website. The public hearing will be advertised. We're going to be talking about schedule here shortly with the selectmen's upcoming meeting so that we can all kind of meet the same goal timeline.
Okay, very good. Any further comments, questions on the draft study? All right, hearing none, there's no motion with this item. This was at this point just informational purposes. As Scott just mentioned, we'll probably be discussing scheduling for a formal hearing of some sort when we vote to adopt the actual rates, which most likely would be as recommended at this point. But
so, Mr. Chairman, the schedule going forward is the next Board of Selectmen meeting is tentatively scheduled for August the 10th. We have in the past had a similar discussion as we did today at the Board of Selectmen, after which the public hearing is conducted by the Commission. So with the selectmen meeting August 10th, I'm hoping that the three commissioners would be available, and Dave, either the 17th or the 19th of August, somewhere in the 5:30 window PM.
Yeah, is that in person or is that still video?
We'll be doing a Zoom webinar. It's going to be a little different in that we'll have it open for public comment. It'll be DPW's first public hearing via Zoom, but we'll have some assistance because the planning board and the Board of Selectmen have been doing Zoom public hearings for a little over a month now. So
My schedule supports it.
God willing, I'll be here.
Yeah.
Well, that's a foregone conclusion, isn't it? Yes, that date sounds fine to me, those dates at this point.
all right, so should we schedule it for Monday, the 17th at 5:30 PM?
Okay,
Scott, just a point of clarification. I had, for some reason, I don't know, maybe it was an earlier schedule. I had the 17th for the select board meeting. That's going to be on the 10th now, you said, right? Tentatively?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. If you can't cover that, I can take care of it.
Okay.
But we'll have the public hearing on August 17th, 5:30. We'll put the notices together. Global we, Sarah. I do have an update on our capital projects now that they have been approved at town meeting. The schedule for bidding was established earlier today for the water garage with a tentatively scheduled bid opening of September 1st, and the tank project, it needs to be done during low demand season. And it can't be done in the winter. So we're really in no immediate hurry for the tank project. So the expectation is to bid that out over the winter time when contractors are maybe somewhat slower and bidding aggressively for the coming season. So our expectation is to bid the tank project, over the winter time in or around the holidays. We are the tank project that does help us in one capacity. We are submitting an application for SRF funding. In the event there's a stimulus package that funnels grant money through existing funding streams, SRF may be one of them. And our expectation is to have our shovel-ready project approved for SRF funding in the event grant money does come available. If it doesn't, there's other avenues for paying for that project. It doesn't hurt to get in the queue though.
Anything further?
Those are the only two capitals we have going right now. Town meeting was warm. I'm not sure which of the commissioners were there, but it was warm and successful.
I have to admit I was not there. Can we hear from the supervisor?
Hello.
There you go. How are things on your side there, Timothy?
Very good.
Okay, no
It's
issues?
going well.
Excellent. Well, good. Keep it up. Keep the guys energized.
All right.
All right. Anything further,
Nope.
Scott?
Nope. That's
Okay.
all.
At this point then, hearing no other information, I'd like to thank Mr. Fox again from Raftellus for your time and your report. Excellent job again.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Yep. So at this point, this will be a motion by roll call to adjourn the meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission. Commissioner Furman,
Aye.
Commissioner Pepe,
Aye.
and Commissioner Meter is an aye. So again, thank you all. We'll see you again sometime.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.